Hello, and welcome to an introduction to the ecoregions and geological features of the state of Connecticut. From one corner to another, observant passengers traveling in a vehicle following a diagonal route from the town of Stonington along the southeastern coast of the state to the town of Salisbury in the northwestern corner would notice a myriad of changes as they traverse the landscape. From standing on the shore and gazing out over Long Island Sound, our travelers would leave the ocean-scented air of the coast and rise in elevation from less than 100 feet to over 1,500 feet. They would drive through rural, suburban, and urban communities. And although they would travel through many acres of forest, the presence of numerous stone walls would serve as a reminder of a not-so-distant past when trees did not dominate the land. Midway through their trek, they would descend from the eastern hills into the flat landscape of the central lowlands of the Connecticut River Valley. Here, their choice of routes narrows, as they must select a bridge to cross the Connecticut River. 15,000 years ago, our travelers would have needed a ferry to cross a much wider glacial lake that extended north from Middletown into Vermont and New Hampshire. Taking back roads and diverting north along the valley, large swaths of farmland, nurtured by floods and seemingly devoid of rocks, come into view, in marked contrast to the dense human footprint evident throughout much of the valley. Crossing the river, our travelers soon begin to gradually ascend one of several spines of ancient magma flows that extend like narrow fingers spanning the length of the river valley, from Massachusetts' border south to New Haven. They might decide to make a rest stop and take a hike on one of many trails along these ridges, perhaps stopping to enjoy a picnic lunch at a spot overlooking the valley. As they hike through the forest, they would notice numerous rock outcroppings and piles of loose, dense, gray-brown rock, trap rock, erosion-resistant, cooled magma. Departing, they descend steeply back into the valley, but only briefly, as their vehicle soon begins a steady climb into the western hills. As they continue their ascent northwestward, these travelers might also notice subtle changes in the composition of trees in surrounding forests. More sugar maple and beech, typical of northern hardwood forests, and less oak and hickory, typical of central hardwood forests. As they pass into the northwestern corner of the state, the mountainous topography is broken by a series of deeply excised valleys. Making their way along the Housatonic River Valley, our travelers encounter expansive swamps and other wetlands, as well as numerous dairy farms. In the vicinity of Cannon, or North Cannon, the striking white rock faces found at several limestone quarries would likely not go unnoticed. These bedrock formations provide a geologic window into the marble valleys that underlie the region, the remains of a long-vanished offshore coral reef that extended across Connecticut hundreds of millions of years ago. Making their final ascent to the tri-state border of Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York, our travelers reach their final destination. Upon stepping out of their vehicle to stretch their legs, they may well experience a distinct difference in air temperature compared to what they felt on their brief hike in the central region of the state, averaging as much as 5 degrees Fahrenheit cooler. If our travelers were ambitious, they might decide to hike to the highest peak in the state, Bear Mountain. Over the length of their approximately 109-mile trek, taking less than 3 hours, our travelers would have crossed through 4 distinct ecological regions and encountered 4 unique geological features. If our travelers were nature enthusiasts, they would undoubtedly note significant differences in the biological communities inhabiting these regions. For, despite Connecticut's relatively small geographic area, the state supports a diverse and ever-changing landscape and biota. A landscape dominated by natural and anthropogenic features that continue to influence the distribution of animals and plants. These natural features have also strongly influenced the distribution of people and their use of the land and its natural resources, from Native Americans to late 21st century commuters. Connecticut can be divided into 6 ecological regions, or ecoregions, based on a synthesis of topographic relief, elevation, regional climate, precipitation, and biotic indicators, which indicate the composition of its animal and plant life. These regions are Long Island Sound coastal lowland, eastern hills, northeastern uplands, central lowlands, western hills, and northwestern uplands. 4 of Connecticut's geological features have exerted great influence on the distribution of the state's plants, animals, and natural resources. These are glacial lake formations and deposits, trap rock ridges, marble valleys, and the Connecticut River.